and eat, drink, sleep, enjoy, mate, and be happy, because we don't know whether tomorrow will come. Yes, it's one life. Enjoy it. Now, in previous ages, when people engaged in such type of sinful activities, they were ashamed. They felt disgust and embarrassment before God. But in Kali Yuga, rampantly, Maya Devi, through the minds and the perverted intelligence of humanity, creates all of these so-called scientific explanations to prove that you're just matter. You are the body. There is no witness. There is no reason to restrain oneself. Resisting is a hardship. So don't resist, persist. Nice philosophy. It rhymes. Don't resist, persist. Be happy. But what is that happiness? It is the happiness of scratching a raging rash. That's all. But with our intelligence, others are convincing us through all kinds of sophisticated, scientific, philosophical, technical terms that actually this rash is not a rash. What it really is it's a blessing that's meant to be enjoyed. That's what the rash is. And the more it gets red and it burns, the more fortunate you are. Because the more you can enjoy it. Yes? That's really all that atheism is about. Just rationalization, justification, for that we can have a clearer conscience to engage in sinful activities. But Bhagavad Gita teaches us that kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna shamodbhava. The all-devouring sinful enemy of the entire creation is this desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, kama. So yes, many people will run away from the Krishna consciousness movement when they hear these things. Just like Prabhupada was preaching in 26 Second Avenue. And quite a famous musical band of the 1960s, they actually came to see Prabhupada. Do you remember their names? The Fugs. Very glamorous name. And I think there were 3 or 4 of them. And they were influential. And all they sang about was intoxication and sex. That's all. That's why they were so famous. Because people like to hear about that in Kali Yuga. People in the mode of goodness would vomit hearing their songs. But the people so much in passions and ignorance, they were just working hard to earn money to buy their records and listen and enjoy. Because what we associate with, we become very influenced by that. Just listening to that music is like putting fuel in the fire. Yes? So they were very, very famous for singing about very degraded subjects like intoxications and sex. But they came to see Prabhupada. Hayagriva Prabhu and these other devotees, they actually brought him to see Prabhupada, Allen Ginsberg. And Prabhupada was speaking about how you're not this body or the eternal soul, and they were really listening. Prabhupada was really enlightening them. But the devotees were in their minds. Some devotees who were there told me that some of the devotees were actually praying to Krishna that Prabhupada doesn't tell them the regulative principles. Because they knew they'd never be able to accept such an impractical idea. So devotees were actually praying to Krishna that Prabhupada not talk about the 4 regulative principles to them. But Krishna's in Prabhupada's heart. So they were listening, and Prabhupada culminated by, first he was talking about the chanting of the holy names and how it spiritually enlightens you through music, and they really liked that. Spiritual enlightenment through music, because they were musicians. And then Prabhupada said, but you must follow these principles. And, no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex. And they just looked down on the ground. And after a few seconds, they got up and left. They got up and left. It's intolerable for them. What Prabhupada was doing is he was challenging everything they dedicated their life to. Not only personally, but everything they were propagating. They were heroes. They were famous because of that. But Bhagavad Gita explains, what is intoxication? When we are frustrated because our lust, our kama, is not being properly fulfilled, both mentally and physically, then we take shelter of the mode of ignorance, just to dull our mind, dull our senses, and dull our intelligence. And that's what intoxication is about. Recently, I was with a very high society person in Bombay. And he was telling me at the very aristocratic parties in Bombay, everyone's holding alcoholic beverages in their hands the whole time. It's fashionable, just walking around drinking, sometimes taking very heavy drugs. In fact, this person told me, he's been to these degraded high society parties in Europe, in America, in Australia. He said, but in this high society range of the top leaders of society, he said, the parties in India are more degraded than anywhere else in the world. And this is a person who goes to them but doesn't indulge in those things. He said they are more degraded. Is it a surprise? Prabhupada explained exactly why. He said the Indians who try to enjoy Western culture, or Western, not culture, Western, I'm not going to use that word. He's from the West, so he knows it. But the Western way of sense gratification, Prabhupada said they are like new crows. Now, if any of you want a practical visualization of the nature of crows, just go to the side of the temple. The other day I was sitting in the garden, and we have nice, beautiful trees. There's kadamba trees, and champak trees, and bakula trees, and all these nice little sparrows. They're all just flying on the trees and eating the seeds of the trees and eating nice seeds and drinking water. And they're just so happy, just going from leaf to leaf and branch to branch, just enjoying the beauty of the garden. Yes? But then I left and I saw there was, this is literal. This is historical, what I'm telling you. There was one of those big blue plastic trash cans with the garbage is, just full of all kinds of decomposed decomposed garbage that smelled miserable. Yes? And circling the whole rim of the garbage were crows. Right outside the fence of the garden. Not a single crow came in the garden. They were all eating the garbage. And the more disgusting the garbage was, the more they were enjoying it. Someone picked up this one piece. It really looked horrible. It was just disgusting, decomposed sewage. And they were fighting over it. Haribo. See? They are saying, yes, yes. But they're proud of it. They're not ashamed, they're proud, the crows. So Prabhupada explained that the Paramhamsa, the swan, never goes to the sewage. The swan goes to the lotus flower, goes to the beautiful gardens, the clear waters, and drinks the nectar from the lotus flower. But the crows, they're always going to the places where there's so much garbage and pollution. That's why in the cities today, so many crows, because there's so much sewage and so much garbage, it's so much waste. So Prabhupada said, when Indians, who are coming from a civilization of swans, when they try to enjoy the materialism of Western sense gratification, says they are new crows. Now, what is the difference between a new crow and an old crow? This is very important for you Indians to understand. The difference between a new crow and an old crow is an old crow is eating the garbage, but he's not so enthusiastic about it because he's been eating it for his whole life. Yes? But a new crow, it's something very new. It's something very fashionable. And amongst all the other new crows around you, the more you can enjoy it, the more they think you're cool. A cool crow, yes? So very, very enthusiastic. So the parties in India are more degraded than the West because it's something new. It's something, the new crows. This garbage is something, tastes so good, it's so fresh, it's so different, so nice. That is the degradation of this age of Kali. So therefore, Krishna explains, from the very beginning, we should somehow or other conquer over this lust. We must protect, we must control all of the senses on all sides by the mind and the intelligence. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara vasehi asyandriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. Krishna says, one who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is a man of steady intelligence. How to do that? There are the do's and there are the don'ts, Prabhupada explains. There are rules of what is to be done and what is not to be done. What is not to be done is we must follow these 4 regulative principles. And what is to be done is to fix the consciousness on Krishna. And that's what initiation is about. We take a vow not to do what harms our spiritual life the most. The 4 rules. Those are don'ts. And then we fix our mind on Krishna. We take a vow to fix our mind on Krishna through the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vishayadani vartante niraharasya dehena rasavarajam rasopyasya param dristvani vartate. It's only possible to divert one's consciousness away from sense gratification if we experience something higher. Therefore, the path of bhakti is the simplest but the most powerful. The path of bhakti is to keep one's mind and senses positively engaged in Krishna's service. And gradually we experience a higher and higher and higher taste. It's not cheap. It may not come so easy. We've been addicted to mental and physical pleasures since time immemorial. If it takes a few decades, that's not much at all. We have to show our sincerity. If we're just sincere, Krishna will give us all help. Krishna tells a nice story. But I'll go, before telling the story Krishna tells, I'll tell a story Shukadev Goswami explains. There was a king named Buddha, and his wife was Ila, and they had a son whose name was Aila, also known as Pururava. And this is an important story to understand. Material opulences can put us in very dangerous situations. Because the more we have any opulence in this material world, the more we're going to be a target to Maya Devi and her agents. Yes? He had such a beautiful body. Pururava's body was like that of Cupid. Now, how many of you men would like to have such a beautiful, strong, handsome, heroic body like Cupid? You don't have to raise your hand. So he was like that. Very learned, very distinguished. He was the king of the world. Very, very wealthy, young. He was strong, he was intelligent, he was beautiful, he was wealthy, he had everything. He was such a great person, in this sense, that even girls, the Apsara, Urvasi, she was listening. And just by hearing about Pururava, she fell in love with him. Yes? And she fixed her mind. Because she was cursed by two demigods, that she had to, for some time, become like a human being on earth. So she was thinking, as long as I have to do that, this is the way I want to do it. So she fixed her mind. And Urvasi was the most beautiful lady of Indra's court. So she came right before Pururava in a secluded place and presented herself in such a passion for him that he couldn't resist. So she said, please, let us enjoy. And he said, yes, yes, it is the will of providence that you have come. Let us enjoy. She said, we can enjoy, we could marry, but because I'm from the celestial worlds, you have to grant me 2 benedictions. And if you break these benedictions, then I'll leave you immediately. The first one, only feed me edibles that are cooked in ghee. Hare Krishna. He said, definitely. And she said, I have come down from the celestial world with 2 little lambs. And these lambs are like my own sons. I love them dearly. That you will protect these lambs. He said, yes, yes, I will protect the lambs. And she said, and another thing, in the heavenly planets, we are dignified. I never want to see you undressed anywhere outside of when we're enjoying together in the bed. He said, I will never do such a thing. So then he was completely immersed in enjoying the pleasures of Urvasi for many days. But Indra was lonely for her. So he sent 2 Gandharvas, and they were very intelligent. What they did is in the middle of the night, right when Pururava was enjoying with Urvasi, they stole the 2 lambs. And the 2 lambs were screaming and crying, ah! And Urvasi just looked at Pururava with such wrath and said, Hare Krishna. She scolded him. She said, you rascal. She said, you are posing yourself to be a big hero and a strong king, but you're nothing but a coward and a eunuch. My lambs are being stolen, and you're just laying here like a weakling, like a fool, just enjoying with me. She was really shooting arrows in his heart through her words. What a total disappointment and disgrace you are to the Kshatriya race. So Pururava was, because he's a Kshatriya. Dishonor is worse than death, especially from Urvasi. So he didn't think. He just picked up a sword and charged at the Gandharvas. But he forgot to put on his clothes. That was the problem. And then the Gandharvas they became effulgent. Their bodies, they have mystic powers. They just lit up. They don't need torches or flashlights or anything like that, or electricity. They just chanted a mantra and their body became effulgent and lit up all directions. And it was at midnight. And Urvasi saw that here is Pururava coming back with the lambs in his hands without clothes. So she left him. Hare Krishna. Should I continue? This is Srimad Bhagavatam. So she left him. What happened to that poor king? Nunam pramata kudute vikarma. He was totally mad. He could not live without her. He couldn't rule his kingdom. He couldn't do anything. He was just psychotic. All he could think of is getting her back. Couldn't perform his duties. There was not a drop of happiness left in his heart. He was just in anguish. This is the law of nature. To the degree you're attached to something that gives you enjoyment, to that same degree you will suffer when it's taken away. And everything is temporary. Everything will be taken away in due course of time. That is why detachment is actually the only way you can be peaceful in this world. To the degree you're detached, you can be peaceful. To the degree you're attached to anything temporary, you have to suffer in due course of time. In Kali Yuga, people cultivate attachment to the temporary. Civilized life is to detach oneself from the temporary. That's what all the ashrams, brahmachari, grihastha, vanapras, sannyas, all the 4 ashrams are scientific social processes of gradually or quickly detaching yourself from temporary enjoyment. Because there's no other way to be happy. And of course we know the best way to detach ourselves from the temporary is to completely attach ourselves to the eternal. That is bhakti. So he left all of his duties as king. He couldn't function anymore. He just wandered the world looking for Urvasi. Can you imagine? Just like a madman, just wandering alone all over the world looking. And finally he came to Kurukshetra. On the bank of the Saraswati River, she was sitting with 5 other gentlemen. And he was so shameless. He fell at her feet and was begging her, please be merciful, please be merciful. If you don't come back to me, I'm going to give up my life. And she preached him very nicely. She said, you are a fool. Why you're so attached to sense gratification? Don't you understand that the senses are like foxes? Yes, the senses, when they become attached to their object, are like foxes that just come and devour you. The scriptures explain that the senses that are searching sense gratification are like venomous snakes. The very senses and their attachment to the objects are like foxes that eat us and snakes that poison us. She said, don't you see that? Don't you see the misery I've caused you? Why are you so attached? You're a fool. She taught Gita philosophy to him. But he was so intoxicated, so infatuated, because his mind, indriyanam icharatam yanmano navadiyate tarasya harati pragya vayor navam vivambasi. His mind was so fixed on his senses, he could, after hearing her very beautiful discourse, he just begged her, please let me enjoy with you. And she said, all right, I'll let you have one son a year. One night a year we'll enjoy an olive sun for you, but that's the only time you'll see me. So anticipation, waiting, longing for that one day to come, you know. It was like 364, 363, 364, and just waiting. And then it was getting closer. And then only 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. And she appeared. And oh, how he enjoyed. At least he thought he was. Just scratching that itch. He had one night a year to scratch, and he scratched. And then she left. And then he was in total madness. He was in madness when he was scratching it, and he was in madness when she left. Absolutely just disoriented and miserable. I have to wait another year now. Just obsessed. It was such a miserable situation. He did this whole sacrifice. Because Satya Yuga turned into Treta Yuga, so at that time Yajna became the Yuga Dharma. So he did this whole elaborate sacrifice to petition Lord Vishnu. And the whole purpose of the sacrifice was to live on the same planet as Urvasi. And he did it. And he was living with Urvasi. And then there was no separation. That's the end of the story. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. No story ends with that. But it seems that way. I remember when I first read, what's going on here? This is the 9th chapter ended, that chapter of the 9th canto ended like that. He's enjoying like anything. But then in the 11th canto, Krishna, he actually puts the conclusion to the story, the Aila Gita, where Pururava, he's enjoying, but then he realizes, what am I doing? The process of enjoying and separation was so intense, that he actually came to the conclusion that he's the greatest fool, totally victimized by his senses, and therefore he's wasted his entire life. And he's in utter misery. And in that state, he takes shelter of Krishna. He just gives it all up and just totally takes shelter of Krishna. That sense gratification is the path to suffering and death. The only refuge is in taking shelter of the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, Rama means the reservoir of all pleasure. We are looking for pleasure because the soul is pleasure-seeking. We have to simultaneously understand the dangers of sense gratification very, very carefully and very soberly. And with that intelligence, we have to be very strict. Just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he saw Lord Chaitanya, 24-year-old sannyasi, and he's so beautiful. Because the more you have things that are attractive, the more you're going to attract material energy to plunder you. Yes? Just like a rich man, so many thieves want to rob him. Nobody wants to rob a poor man. Yes? If a woman is beautiful or a man is handsome, so many people are aggressively wanting to exploit you. If you're not beautiful, nobody really cares. Yes? If you're strong, the big champions, everybody else wants to defeat you. If you're not a champion, nobody even wastes their time trying to defeat you. There's no honor in defeating a loser, right? There's no honor in defeating a loser. But if you can defeat the champion, you become the champion. Yes. So whatever opulence we have, we're going to become attractive, and people are going to be attracted to plunder us, to exploit us. Yes? That's what happened to Pururava. He was beautiful and wealthy. That's what happened to Vishwamitra. He had the opulence of renunciation. He attracted powers to come and defeat. So devotees are only concerned with being the servant of the servant of the servant. Devotees want to put their mind, their hearts, their energies into utilizing these serpents. The senses are our most glorious offerings to God when they're used for the proper purpose. But if not, those same senses are like venomous serpents to our own souls. That is the verdict of the scriptures and the acharyas. Therefore, with the grace of the Vaishnavas, the spiritual master, we're being given the opportunity to fulfill the real mission of human life, to actually find the supreme pleasure that the soul is longing for. In fixing our consciousness on Krishna. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriya. Krishna possesses all the six opulences in full. And Krishna is so merciful, so kind. He's appearing on the altar as Sri Radha Gopinath with Srimati Radharani, just to attract our hearts. He's appearing in the beautiful words of Srimad Bhagavatam to nourish our intelligence. His pastimes, as we hear them more and more and more and more and more, we are enchanted by his pastimes. And our natural love flows toward the lotus feet of Krishna. And Krishna gives us so many wonderful dynamic activities of devotional service in which we can use the same mind, the same senses, the same intelligence in doing wonderful, wonderful offerings to Krishna and becoming purified. Sarvapadiva nirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktaruchyate. If we just use our senses in the service of Rishikesh, our senses, our mind, our whole existence becomes purified. But of all the processes of devotional service, Lord Chaitanya said, the most powerful is how Krishna has descended within his name. We must take shelter of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare rather than nunam pramata kurute vikarma, rather than being mad for sense gratification, we become mad for Krishna. Hare Krishna. That is the solution, to become mad for Krishna. Hanuman was mad for Ram. Yes? Where is Ram? Where is Ram? Somebody said, Hanuman, control yourself. He's in your heart. Then I will see him. Just ripping his chest open, ripping his heart open. No, stop, stop, stop. And he was so mad for Ram that when he ripped his heart open, Sita and Ram actually appeared right within his heart so he could see. Very nice. That's madness, is it not? But that's good madness. Ravana was mad in another way. His own wife, Mandodari, said, Ravana, give this idea for Sita up, you'll be destroyed. Kumbhakarna told him. His own brother, Vibhishan, his brother, told him. Everyone was telling him. But he was, Maricha, the mystic, they all told him, give up this madness, but he couldn't give it up. His mind was so much focused on the sense objects, to the false Sita. So that's madness, and look where it got him. Frustration, devastation, did nothing but suffer due to that obsession. But Hanuman was mad, but he was mad for the service of Ram. And the gopis of Vrindavan, how they were mad when Krishna left Ras Leela. They were in the forest just begging the trees and the birds and the deers and the moon, where is the son of Nanda Maharaj? Have you seen him? Begging the river Yamuna and the lotus flowers, please tell us, where is Krishna? And when no one answered their appeals, they were just in madness of remembering Krishna. They were enacting his leelas of killing Putana and killing Sakatasura, killing Vatsasura, lifting Govardhan. Totally mad for Krishna. So life is about being mad, but being mad for the right thing. Being mad for Krishna is ananda, pure ecstasy. And being mad for sense gratification is the source of all suffering. We should not waste our time. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I think it is very late.